Hi guys, this is Mark Shawson, the Pattern Trader. For the last several days, the last several weeks, the last several months, and actually even the last several years, I've been talking a lot about the Japanese yen trading pairs, in particular the dollar versus the Japanese yen. Many years ago, I spotted a very bearish price pattern, and on balance, I've been looking at every move to the upside to short the dollar versus the Japanese yen. But I'm starting to see that there may be a little bit of a sea change underway. I'm, still on the sidelines, but I think that we're starting to see a swing or momentum to the upside. And I've started to, shift the balance of my approach, the balance of my trades now to looking for weakness to actually get long these yen pairs, in particular Euro yen, and very specifically in the pound versus the Japanese yen. Now, again, on balance, this pair has been in a profound downtrend for the last 5 years, and we've had some, incredible up moves only to be followed by further down moves. And, I thought recently when we had another up move that, we were just setting up for another fall. But I'm starting to see that these yen pairs, and in particular the pound versus the Japanese yen, is starting to grab a foothold. And there is starting to feel like there's an undertow and a movement now toward the momentum to the upside. About a week ago, I started getting long the pound versus yen in the mid 134, about 134.67. Right now it's trading in the market about 136.20. So I've got, 150, 170 pips profit in there. I'm going to go to the real-time charts in a moment, show you what I'm looking at. But every time this thing gives me another look, I actually add to my position. So I've been kind of aggressively positioning the pound versus the yen on the long side. But this pair should come with a warning label, like don't let children play with this, or don't try this at home. Because the pound versus the Japanese yen is a bucking bronco. It goes up and down 200-300 pips with alacrity, with regularity. And so that if you don't know how to kind of position yourself for the long term, or your stops aren't wide enough, you're just going to get taken out all over the place. So, I keep my stops very wide. Sometimes I don't even like to admit it, but I don't even put a stop loss in there because I feel like I know what I'm looking at, and I don't want to be taken out by these premature jerks in the market. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in just a moment. So I am positioning myself very aggressively, actually, on the long side of pound versus yen. And now I'm going to go to the real-time chart, show you what I'm looking at, and how I approach this trade. So before I go to the real-time chart of the British pound versus the Japanese yen to show you what's going on there and why I've started getting bullish, I just wanted to share with you a series of emails that I recently sent out to our members. This was about a week ago, where I sent out on Thursday, September 24th, alerting them to an opportunity in the pound versus the Japanese yen, and more specifically indicating or suggesting or recommending putting a pending or resting order in the form of a buy stop at 134.67. Now, I usually put my orders in the form of a buy stop or sell stop because I'm looking for market to confirm my analysis. So I had all my analysis that I was showing on the chart here, but I required the market to confirm it, and the market eventually triggered my order, and as you'll see, I'm trading about 150 pips higher than where this entry was about a week ago. And in my analysis below, I said I've been bearish on Japanese yen pairs for quite some time, but feel they're getting exhausted to the downside and are digging in at current levels and showing some level of support. I went on to say, I get the feeling that should pound yen get above the recent several inside day bars coil, and you can see that on the chart. I'll bring it up more specifically in a minute. You can see this coil here. I said, should it get above that coil, it could uncork to the upside. So, I was not shy about indicating that it looked like there was support and this thing was going to go higher. So this was another email that was sent out 4 or 5 days later. suggesting based on the price action in the pound versus the Japanese yen that I wanted to add to my trade. So you can see again the trade was in the pound versus the yen. I suggested putting a buy stop again above this inside bar. You can see that it broke out of the coil that I was indicating in the previous email. And I said if I'm correct in my assessment, pound versus yen should smoke to the upside. Now, in pretty atypical fashion, I again followed up with another email just a few days later on the 30th to continue adding to the pound versus the Japanese yen on the continued momentum to the upside. I did see this key reversal price bar, which I'll explain. And then in addition to the previous two orders, I recommended putting an additional buy stop at 136.57. And now I'll show you why I'm so bullish on the market, but why this is also such a difficult pair to get a hold of. So you can see that, I do keep my stops pretty wide. This stop was 130 pips below today's price action, and you'll see that there's a reason why I keep my stops so wide. So now I'm looking at the real-time chart of the British pound versus the Japanese yen on a daily chart. And I got to admit, this has been somewhat of a struggle for me to see what is the dictating or governing pattern. So I typically look for a pattern that will dictate or govern the future trajectory of the market. And in this case, there has been some ambivalence, but I do believe that the momentum is to the upside. So you can see that in this particular time frame, the governing price pattern was this double or unconventional double top, where you made a new high, you kind of bounced off it, you retested the high, and created this M top. And when you see these reversal price patterns, it indicates that the market is going to reverse direction. In this case, the market was going higher. When we see the M top, now it indicated once this neckline was broken that we were going to go lower, and that's exactly what happened. We smoked from 142 all the way to 122. That means you could have made about 20 grand for every $1,000 you put up just by recognizing this very simple double top price pattern. But once these plays exhaust themselves, then new patterns emerge, and now we got to figure out which is the governing or dictating price pattern. So admittedly, we've had a lot of ambivalence in this time frame, where this has just been, like I said, a bucking bronco going up and down with no real evidential underlying directional bias. But frankly, when I step back, I'm starting to see certain patterns emerge, which suggests that the momentum will continue to the upside. And really what I'm talking about is this double bottom in this time frame about a year or so ago. And then we had another recent double bottom. It's somewhat unconventional, asymmetrical, where the second low doesn't come down and meet the other low. But again, this does look like a W bottom, and it looks like the neckline is forming right around where prices are currently. So based on these double bottoms, I think that there is an underlying foundation in this market, in addition to which there was another double bottom price pattern that took place a few months ago at the 132, and you can see we recently came back and retested that support. So now with all of this basing, bottoming activity going on, my hypothesis is that the next directional bias in pound versus yen, at least for the next few days or few weeks, is still going to be higher. There is resistance around this 140 area and then 142, but based on what I'm seeing, we should be able to overcome that. So let me just redraw this real quick. So what I was looking at, so now based on all this bottoming or basing activity, where I see a series of these double bottoms, another one here, and then we came right back to the support level, when I started to see this coil right here, I was indicating to our members that I thought that the coil would break to the upside. And so we put our a buy stop there at 134.67. This was our initial buy. Then I saw another price bar here to buy it at 136.27. And then last night I got real aggressive because I saw this key reversal in yesterday's session where it made a new low, closed on the high, and then for those of our members that are more aggressive, suggested that they could add, a third trade right here at 136.57. You can see prices currently are a little lower than the third buy, hovering around 136.09. But I do believe that the bias is to the upside, and that we will see a further movement, out of this pattern to this 140 price level. Now, in addition to the recent behavior at the support level at 132, I do see this inverted head and shoulders. And so if we thrust through the neckline, which is about where the high was today, that I think this will give a much more gravitational pull to the upside in the pound versus the Japanese yen. Now you'll notice on my prior analysis, my analysis was done on the daily chart, which means I was standing back and looking at a bigger time frame where I look at a minimum time frame of one 24-hour session. I also look at weekly and monthly bars. What I don't do is look at short-term time frames. And the reason why is we see how enormous the swings are just in a few hours in the pound versus the yen. So if you're frozen at your trading screen watching this thing, there's no way you can stay objective, and there's no way you can stay in this thing for the long term. So in this chart, I'm looking at the pound versus Japanese yen only on a 15-minute chart. And as you can see, it just has these enormous, down moves where you have, in this case, it went from about 136.80 to all the way to 135.20, 160 pip drop. In this case, we went from 137 to 135.80, 120 pip stop. And this is why I don't sit in front of my screen. I take a long-term view about where this thing is going, and I'm happy to sit in it for days, weeks, or months to see out my objectives. What I don't do is sit in front of the screen and try and figure out where this thing is going, and there's no way to stay objective when this is happening. Quite frankly, I put in my buy stop in at 136.57 last night, right around here, and then this morning I started to see, that it was going in the direction I was anticipating, and I thought, we were going, to go to much greater heights. And like I said, I don't sit in front of my screen. I took my car in this morning to get new wheels and new tires, and sat in the shop there for about 3 hours. I wasn't watching the market, and kind of like flashed on my phone and saw that prices had gone down 150 pips from where I left earlier in the morning. But I don't care. I'm like putting wheels on my car and doing other things, and this market will work it out when it does. And when it does work itself out, I do think it will be to the upside. So this is why I caution against short-term trading. There's no way you can anticipate or handle these kind of movements and stay in a trade for the long term as I do. So I'm going to finish this off by showing you the trades that I took commensurate with the emails that I sent out to our members, where I bought the pound versus yen at 134.67. I bought it again at 136.27. I bought it again at 136.57. I also bought the euro yen on my belief that, again, these yen pairs are turning, and you can see I'm in a slight loss for the recent two ads, but overall I'm still about 50 grand to the good in these positions. And frankly, I do think that this profit level will increase. Obviously, it could go the other way very quickly, the way these things move around. But on balance, I think that we have a foundation under these yen pairs. There seems to be like a paradigm shift happening, and if I'm correct, I will make a lot of money on that, and hopefully the members that got my email will also benefit accordingly. So that's how I do it. So I hope you got a ton of value out of this video. If you would like to know a little bit more about my methodology and how I capitalize on monster moves in the market, I highly suggest that you download my weekly video report. The weekly video report is available for any price you want to pay, so it's kind of a no-brainer offer. And so I look forward to seeing you on the next weekly video report. So with that said, I wish you a healthy and prosperous trading day, and I will see you next time.